Welcome to the Wisdom Window on Strong Island Radio. The Wisdom Window is your portal to timeless knowledge and understanding. Join us each episode as Maddi Cheers and Marianne Franzese examine ancient and current wisdom traditions and apply these teachings to today's unique challenges. So let's get started and welcome your hosts, Maddi and Marianne.
Hello, and welcome to the Wisdom Window. I'm Maddi Cheers, and I'm here again with my co-host, Marianne Franzese. Hi, Mare.
Hey, Maddi. Good to see you.
And we are here with our special guest, Paula Jennings, and dear friend and member of our women's circle. So we are having our summer solstice, full moon women's circle today, and we thought it would be fun to do a talk about why these circles are so important. For women and men, these circles go back to ancient times. As a matter of fact, our circle was called for by the spiritual leader of our adopted Lenape family about 15 years ago. She said it was time to renew this very important ritual to bring the masculine and feminine energies back into balance. And what we found over the years is that having so many women from so many different backgrounds be able to get together and talk openly in a safe space is really healing. So I'm going to turn it over. I'm going to ask Paula, you, Marianne and I have been doing this a long time, and you facilitate your own circles too, to talk about what this has meant to you.
Well, thank you, Maddi. Thank you, Marianne, for inviting me to be here today.
Oh, welcome.
It's such an honor. And I can say that the circles that I have shared with both of you have been witnessed in transformation, really, because that to me is what circle means a lot. It's about the fact that we are on a soul journey, right? In this time, especially, our souls are evolving at a more rapid rate. I feel we have this capability to draw in light in ways that perhaps were not available to us before. And that brings up a lot of issues. That brings a lot of self-doubt. That brings a lot of who am I? What the hell am I doing? You know, we're forced to make brave and courageous choices. And even though it's an internal journey, you know, we are going in ourselves, without the witness of the circle, without the support of the organism, I like to call a circle, because I believe that everybody in the circle holds medicine we hold it for each other. Mm-hmm. And we are separate, but we are one. And for me, that is the most beautiful part of the circle, is having reflected back to me aspects of my personality or my character or my divinity in some ways that I may not be able to access without being in the circle. And so when somebody speaks in circle, I always feel that they are speaking for everyone and to everyone. And so I dived right in there.
That's good.
No, there's a lot there that you're bringing. And I love how you referred to the circle as an organism.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the traditions of our circle is that it always starts with the Thanksgiving address. And I was talking to one of the women who does our circle often, and she said to me, once that prayer of gratitude is spoken, it is as if the circle takes on a life of its own and we become transported. And when you were talking about it as an organism, there is this living life force that can be created when a circle is held in that spirit of true gratitude for just having that space to create.
Yes. And I think that is something that our ancient ancestors, because all our ancestors sat in circle.
Yeah.
You know, for some of us, it ended longer ago than for others of us, but all of our ancestors sat in circle. And they did that because they recognized exactly what the two of you talked about. You have to have that community, and you have to have that support And as we talk more and more, I mean, every day, I think somewhere I see the question on Facebook, or I hear the question from a friend or a family member about, oh, I don't know how we're ever going to come together again. I don't know. We seem so divided, and there is no unity. There is no path for that. And the circle is the path for that. I mean, we certainly sit in circle with women of varying ideas and varying backgrounds, varying cultures, who can listen to each other, like you said. And I do think, I just read this thing about listening recently, about how when we are listening, it is the first step to overriding our ego. And the ego is necessary. I'm not saying that the ego doesn't play its important part, but when we're stuck in that lower level of ego energy, we don't listen. We're afraid. There's that too. We're stuck in that flight or fight kind of idea. But that when we agree to listen with our hearts to a person in a circle, and we do have ground rules for those of you thinking of starting your own circles. When somebody brings to the circle something they need help with, or asking for advice or comments, then we all go around the circle until that person feels like they've been answered. And that is our agreement before we start. And we don't go on to the next person, even if we have to be there for hours and hours, and we often have been there for hours and hours. Even if that's our commitment to each other, is that we will be there for each other, so that you can bring these concerns to the circle. And we've done it. You were just saying, Marianne, about doing this virtually, working with your clients, and even doing virtual circles, how even that is powerful. I've been fortunate enough to do a full moon circle every night through COVID, since all of this started, every full moon night. And doing it virtually is very powerful. I just did one this past Thursday, and we were all commenting how more and more, as we did it on Zoom, more and more it felt like being in person, because it's about the energy and the organism.
Yes,
The
exactly.
life, right?
The life that it
Exactly.
takes on. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that is the vehicle for uniting us. But the listening piece, and that's something you're really familiar with, Marianne, the listening piece, and this idea that it overrides just the agreement to listen.
Yes.
Makes you more humble.
I think it's the nature of a circle, the shape of a circle, that equalizes all voices.
Yes.
So there isn't someone who's standing in front and leading the way, and their voice holds more authority, and so you tune your ear to the person who's in charge. Circles aren't about in charge. And I also asked one of the little girls who has participated in our circle, what is the wisdom of the circle? Which is a big question for a little kid.
Right.
But I'm like, sometimes you have to ask kids big questions. And her answer was so beautiful, because what she said is, a circle is different because everybody has an equal place. When you stand in line, now children are very familiar with lining up. We like fight for who's going to be first, who's going to be last. If you're stuck in the middle, you really don't matter. And I thought, oh my gosh, us just naturally lining children up or sitting them in rows of lines sets up a sort of hierarchy of importance, where the circle diminishes that, collapses that. We're all here, every voice is equal. So we listen, like you were talking about, Paula. If you are sitting across from me and speaking, that's mirroring something inside of me too.
Yeah.
And I think that mirroring and reflection is very important. We just, in the circle, the virtual circle I was talking about that we did on Thursday night, we finished the prayer round. And this particular circle has a particular spiritual ritual that goes with it. Not all have to. And certainly if you're interested in learning about starting circles, let us know, make some comments. But But we were all just fascinated by, as we often are, how everybody's prayer kind of built one on the other, and how we were listening to each other and going, oh, I was going to pray about that too, or I was going to say that also. And instead of it feeling like, oh, I didn't get to say what I wanted to say because she did it first.
Yes.
It feels like a joining.
Totally agree with that. And I ran also a circle on Thursday night for the full moon, and it was in person, and exactly the same thing happened. We did a little guided meditation, and literally the themes that came through were mirrored by everybody, but everybody had something else to add on to what it was that they were, bringing up, what it was that their guide spoke to them. And it was almost like we all felt that each one of us were part of this connected
Oneness.
Consciousness.
Yes.
Right.
And it's almost like the divine intelligence has a space to come through. And then in the listening, you then get some of the answers to some of the things that maybe you had some inquiries about. And it's about bringing light to what may feel heavy to hold on your own. As well. Like, so, and sometimes, at least for me in the circle, to be able to speak into it and to know that I will be held and not judged and treated equally, or that maybe there might even be some support for me there, which I think as women, at least for me, it took me a long time to be open to that support. So when I would go to circle, I would always feel that I wanted to contribute. And it's also, I think, important in circle that you're open to receive and to listen as well, because we can block off those answers thinking that we have, that maybe we have the answers, or that we don't know how to accept the support. Does that make sense?
It really does. And one of the beautiful kind of repetitive prayer in our circle is our hearts and our minds are one.
Right.
And that is very much the invocation of the heart and mind coming into, and the more conscious mind, that divine intelligence you speak about, making room for the way it flows, which is different than everyday life.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think the wonderful thing about having this chat, and one of the reasons we started the podcast, is it lets us know that regular people have a lot of wisdom. There are wonderful wisdom teachings, there are wonderful wisdom teachers, but that when we're all sitting together and we get to hear each other, I'm always like gobsmacked, for lack of a better word, by some of the things that come out of people that are just so wise and so caring and so loving and brilliant, that it doesn't always mean we have to be following a particular person. And unfortunately, what happens a lot of times, if you are following a quote unquote guru, what often happens is, if that guru goes off the path, Bob and I, my husband and I were just talking about this yesterday, if that guru makes the wrong turn, and instead of staying on that path of humility, right, and offering, and goes off into the I know it all path, and you're going with them, that's going to take you off your path, and it becomes hierarchical.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Whereas when you're sitting in the circle, that doesn't really happen.
No.
And there's also something, I did a healing circle for a friend of my daughter who went through something traumatic, and it was at my home, and I invited my sister, and she says, she said, I don't know if I should be there. I don't know what I can contribute. I get too nervous, like just be. And she was there just being herself. And when the circle ended, the girl who we were offering the healing for went up to my sister and said, I actually felt the most comfort from your presence. Now, this is without speaking, that you can be in circle. Maybe the words aren't there, but it can allow the nature of your true heart to begin to be felt and to be seen. And for my sister, she received a validation of who she was without like, oh, like I'm not like a wise spiritual person. And it goes back to what you were saying,
Right.
Maddi. No, it's just be you. It's so
That's it.
beautiful. It is just be you here.
And that's what we're trying to say. And I especially hear from young people, because we have, fortunately, both in this circle and the one on that we do on the full moon, there are a lot of younger women in that circle.
Mhm.
And what we're really hearing is that longing for something that isn't so hierarchical, something
Yes.
that is inclusive, something
And
that
authentic.
and authentic. You know, going to, they talk about education for their children, and they want to be able to send their kids to a school where their gifts and talents are validated, and they want to create a world where it's like Star Trek, you know, for those of you who are Star Trek fans out there. But, you know, nobody's making money. Nobody, you know, everybody's doing their job, whatever that job turned out to be for them,
Yeah.
you know, and that entitles you to all your survival needs so that your vocation becomes your heart's desire, you know, and that's the world that young people are talking about. They want to build for their children, because a couple of these women are there with very young children,
Yeah.
and they are dealing with a lot of fear right now, and they're and not sure if that's the direction we're going in, and how do we get to that direction. And to be able, there was such joy at the end of that circle. And for the young woman who's so concerned about her kids, she was so sad at the beginning.
Yeah.
And then by the end of a couple of hours in circle, we were all laughing and joyful and grateful again. And like you said, Marianne, it really starts with that prayer of gratitude.
Mm.
And I think if you're doing a circle, whether it's a prayer, whether you're connected to the divine, and certainly that's what we believe in, is connecting to that divine energy, you have to start with that gratitude, because that does definitely, like you said, Marianne, it shifts the way you think and look at what's going on in the moment.
Yeah, it's almost like the energy of this era that is more of this sort of less direct and straight and hierarchical and more circular and feminine is being embodied in these circles. Like, so they're happening, and they're being, because that is exactly what people are feeling that they need to for themselves most.
Yeah.
And because a lot of people are in a place where they recognize the value of coming together without there being, with I think what it is that a lot of women and men want to be heard and to be seen, and to do that in a circle is, I guess, nourishing, because it's that, I always feel nourished after the circle. I always feel like, whether I spoke or I didn't speak, I always feel like there's this human connection that happens, and that allows space for that divine connection, and that fills up some part of my well that may have been like that woman, perhaps her well was empty when she came. We come around the circle, it's almost like we're around the well,
Right.
And then we're filled up with this wellspring of well-being and light and health and joy, and it's and it keeps you going till the next circle.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And when you're just speaking, Paula, I had such an image, and I'm not sure why, but just of the lineage of these kinds of gathering, and the fact that it can awaken something in our own DNA, and that your ancestors and women and mine and yours, Maddi, have been coming together in circle.
Yes.
For forever,
Eons.
And then it's like this seed gets awakened in us, and we have the support of all those who have been gathering in circles, who've come before us, to help us really birth this new way of being in the world.
Right.
Right.
Mhm.
And it does come from that ancient lineage. We haven't done well the last 200 years with having and creating an inclusive world.
Mm.
So everybody seems very aware that there needs to be something new. And when this style of being in circle came together, it was for the benefit of all.
Right.
So when you were sitting in your community circle, it's for the benefit of all. When we are in women's circle, and in the old days, everybody in the village who's a woman is in that circle, and often they went overnight till the next day. But the men, the dads, the grandfathers, the uncles know that that night they're responsible for the kids. They're going to see to it. They are the supporters of their women having this time because they know the power of that. And that's why symbolically in our circle, it's called for a man to start the fire, light the candle, so that we recognize the equality of both and the balance of both in order to have a world that is at one.
Yes. Yeah. That word balance and humility and gratitude, really, to me, that they're the main words that we think about coming together in circle, right? We're coming with humble and grateful hearts, and we want to create and we are creating balance by having everybody be heard. And as you said, in the tradition, to have the male light the fire, it's the signal that we want to live in harmony.
Right.
And this is what our ancestors want for us too. They want us to connect into a larger sense of, like, putting down, I wouldn't say your wounds, but when you come to circle, there's this idea of, for me, it's putting down what is not serving me and coming into circle with the intention of coming into balance. Because we balance each other. Everything on the planet balances out, right? In the bigger picture.
Right. And the reason the full moon is a symbol for the circle is because, as we now know from science, which, we all believe that our native ancestors from all over the world spent so much time observing nature, they knew the world was held in balance by the moon. We know this now from science. If there were no moon in the sky, no one knows what life would be like here on Earth. We can guess that we wouldn't be here because there would be chaos, the floods, there would be the moon controls the tides. What would all those oceans be like if nothing controlled the tides? If nothing kept the winds in balance, Yes. So it's taken us all these years to recognize this, but you have to speak to people in the language that they can hear. So I think it's very interesting now, this sort of coming together of science and spirituality.
Yeah.
So, and when you sit in a circle, you start to listen to people's different languages, not from another culture, but because we're all speaking that same language, but their heart language.
And I think that it's really an important piece of wisdom. Something you just said, Paula, about you ask yourself the question, what do I need to put down to enter circle? Because it is, if in fact it is a circle of the benefit of all, like you said, Maddi, a circle of good intention, of pure reverence and sacred space, then that is a personal responsibility. 100%. What do I need to put down so that I can enter my heart? Yeah. It may be my competition, my jealousy, my doubts, all those my anger, frustration, all the human emotions that we carry. I'll put it at this gate, because we're crossing a threshold. I could pick it back up when I'm out of circle. Maybe I won't want to. Yeah. But what do I need to so that I can cross in and begin this communion and work?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's a work.
And I think that what happens in circle, because we're starting with that idea, when somebody does come in and wants to talk about, I am so angry about this, they're supported, and there's a sense that we're going to solve this together.
Yes.
You know, we're going to let you talk about your anger. We're going to listen to you. But if you're bringing it to the circle, you obviously want some comment and
Yes.
some conclusion, maybe even, which may or may not come out of circle, but it begins there. So when you do set it aside for the ritualistic moment of the circle, for the sake of the oneness of the group, and bring it at the appropriate time, because that round, that releasing round in a full moon circle, comes after the prayer round, after the
Such
ritual.
a good point,
Yeah.
Maddi.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Such a good point.
So you're bringing that with what the Haudenosaunee call the good mind.
Yes.
Yeah.
The whole idea of being in gratitude, of saying a prayer of gratitude, is it raises you into that good mind, so that
Yes.
even if you're dealing with the darkness, you're dealing with it in the light.
Yes, with a vibration that's higher than it would be if you were not in circle.
Yep.
And therefore opening up a portal or a door for it to be transmuted into something completely different, for us to let it go, release it, right? And so, and I think for me, witnessing, being able to speak and witnessing other people speak into their anger has helped me access my own anger too, which I think is another great value that the circle brings to us, because we get, as I said in the beginning, reflected back to us the things that we are holding. And maybe we don't know. Maybe it's not even, we don't know. There's something, there can be an epiphany, a revelation a lot of time in circle where I go, wow, like that, what that woman just said, it just hit me here, right in my heart.
Right, exactly. And I think that is the value of being consistent with it too.
I agree.
So when the spiritual leader called for the renewal of the full moon women's circle, and we who were obligated to bring it forth had to do that, she said it has to be done every month, even if it's just you, and with our circle, it started with 2 of us. And then expand, and it went through its machinations. It went through Marianne.
How long have you been doing it?
Oh my God,
15 years.
15, I think.
Yeah.
I was just speaking with my daughter Emma, who was at the
that's
first
right.
one. She's like, I was at the very first moon circle, so excited, and she was
Right,
a baby,
the time, right,
15 years old.
Wow.
Wow.
Yep. And she was also at that one, you two were at the one where we decided we were going to kind of pull back and do invitation only, because people were in this one circle, people were in that state, very human state of waiting for their turn to talk. So it seemed like, and our friend who had just gone through 2 weeks earlier the death of her father brought that to the circle, and the next woman to speak, rather than acknowledge that, just went into her own thing. And we realized that there were going to have to be some ground rules, and maybe even some training about, because we're all used to that. That's our culture. We're all used to arguing, debating, waiting for my turn to make my point,
Which takes us out of listening.
Right. Exactly. And that is certainly what circle can give to you. It's a whole new way. It's like a re-education process without judgment. Nobody's going to condemn you. We didn't take that woman aside and say anything to her later. We who were leading the circle just gathered later and said, okay, what do we do so that situation doesn't come up again? It's not like we humiliated her. We didn't reprimand her, because the circle is not a place for judgment, even if somebody screws up big time. It's not the place for it.
And because we're not raised in that culture, right, of circle, where in cultures where you're used to that model, you grow up with it, it's your second nature. We really do need to be, I don't know, I'm struggling because I don't think taught is the right word, but we need experiences where we can really begin to feel the difference between listening with your heart and listening just with your mind and that kind of nature that's happening there.
It's almost like a remembering.
Yes, yes.
Because it is something that when you find that, it feels innate. It feels like it's more natural than the other type, actually.
And
it feels more,
comfortable.
comfortable.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Something that starts out uncomfortable actually becomes
Yeah.
natural and comfortable.
So friends, we are going to start our circle in about 10 minutes. So we are going to sign off for now, but Paula will be back with us next week for a discussion on transformation, metamorphosis, and the wisdom of transformation and metamorphosis. Ooh, fun, you know.
Get your butterfly wings.
Get your
Butterfly wings out. So Paula, real quick, just give us some contact info for you and we'll give it out again next week.
Oh, thank you, Maddi. Yeah, my name is Paula Jennings. As Maddi said, my Instagram is Paula Jennings 108 and my website is paulajennings.com.
Pretty easy out
That's
there.
it. Yeah, that's
Okay,
it.
so again, thank you all for listening. Thank you to our fabulous producer, Bobby Lacera, and everyone over there at Strong Island Entertainment. And we'll see you next week. Peace, love, and circles. Bye now.